All right, what's going on, my friends? It's now 3 o'clock. The Trailblazers return to action tomorrow night after 3 days off. They'll meet the Pelicans in New Orleans. The Blazers are favored by 5.5. Tip-off is set for 5. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 3 on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. From college football, Michigan has fired head coach Sharon Moore for an inappropriate relationship. Big Pogey has been named interim head coach for their bowl game against Texas. From the NFL, Colts are at the Seahawks on Sunday afternoon. Phillip Rivers is an option to start after joining the team this week. Riley Leonard's status for Sunday is unknown at this time after a knee injury Sunday against Jacksonville. And their starter, Daniel Jones, ripped his Achilles in the game. He is done for the season. From baseball, first baseman Pete Alonso and the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a $155 million deal. Army and Navy will meet Saturday in Maryland. Kickoff at noon on CBS. The midshipmen are favored by 6.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive. Hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light. Mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
Is there a possibility later this season, if he continues to struggle, that you can make a change at the quarterback spot?
No, I think that's ridiculous. I think, Jalen Hurts, I know every time I go out in that field with Jalen Hurts as our quarterback, we have a chance to win the game.
We were shocked, mystified by what happened on Sunday. We had one of the most dominant 10 games runs in the history of college football. And it just boggles my mind that when we got off that plane after the Stanford game, that was it. And that's not the way this season deserved to end with the performance of our football team.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Well, it sure looks like Sharon Moore would make Jim Harbaugh very proud. He cheats both on and off the field. What's amazing to me is that some guy named Biff Poggi is going to be their interim head coach. Biff Poggi sounds like someone from a Star Wars movie, like a Star Wars character. There's no way that that's his real name. Hey, what's your name? Biff Poggi? Yeah, no, it's not. You got to be kidding me. So nice work, Sharon. Hey, here's my main question. And apparently he had some type of inappropriate relationship with a staffer, probably an intern. But here's my question about Moore. If Michigan had just beaten Ohio State, and let's say they were going to the playoff, would Michigan have fired Sharon for the inappropriate relationship, or would they cover it up because he got them in the playoff? That's the real question I want to know the answer to. And, of course, we'll never get the answer to that, but I think we know what the answer would be. When you underperform or you don't get the job done, these big-time schools are looking for ways to get rid of you. And so now he's going to lose his wife, his money, his job, and we'll see if he ever gets a head coaching job again in college football. But Michigan, ever since Jim Harbaugh exited, has been embroiled in controversy. For Connor Stallions, the cheating, the filming of signs, the whole shebang. It's all crazy. And that's okay. I don't like Michigan anyways. I don't like their fans. I don't like Michigan and whatever. But this is big-time college football now. These big-time schools aren't going to mess around. If you do this or you do that or you underperform, they're just going to find the money. They're going to fire you. And in this case, it would look like with cause, so they don't have to pay you. But Biff Poggi is going to take over as interim head coach. That's amazing. All right, Trailblazers are going to return to action tomorrow night. That game will tip off in New Orleans at 5. And then Chris Burkhardt will have game day starting at 3 o'clock. So that's the plan for the Blazers. Only 2 games this week. They play tomorrow in New Orleans against the Pelicans. They'll be at home at Moda Center on Sunday for a meeting with the Golden State Warriors. Now, if you want to reach out to me, you can do so, 503-248-0620. That's the telephone number where you can, jump on the show if you desire. We also have the Rip City Radio text line where you can hit me up at 88528. 88528. Great way to interact with me and be a part of the show, 88528. And, of course, you can always listen, stream live, and podcast on our free iHeartRadio app. And, of course, at YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and you can check out the live stream and keep up on any of our local shows right there. So hit me up, 503-248-0620, or you can find me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. It's pretty amazing, but Phillip Rivers could play for the first time in 1,800 days. 1,800 days, my friends. That's a long time. And it's pretty wild to think about Phillip Rivers making a return. Colts are going to be at the Seahawks this weekend. They played a game last Sunday in Jacksonville. They got whacked by the Jags, but even worse, their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones, who's, as you all know, has had a resurgence this season. He was terrific. And the Colts, for the first half of the season, were one of the best teams in the NFL. Well, Daniel Jones ripped up his Achilles in the game on Sunday, and rookie Riley Leonard, who was the backup, had a knee injury. I believe he was a full participant at practice today, but his status for Sunday is unknown. So it's quite possible that Phillip Rivers could make a return. Now, I asked Alex Brink yesterday his thoughts on Phillip Rivers making a return and playing for the first time in 1,800 days. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, it's insane, to be honest with you. I don't know that in theory it's possible. It tells you how, desperate Indianapolis is to find kind of a win now answer when there maybe isn't one, I guess, certainly on the market. Now, some of the stories about how Rivers and Shane Steichen are really close and have been talking all season, and, he just can walk in and understands the system, maybe makes more sense. But, it's funny, I think if you were to ask me what I think, how this will play out for Phillip Rivers, I think the first game will be totally fine. A little bit like Joe Flacco, right? I think he'll be totally fine. But when you've been out of it that long and you're that old, you take a few hits and it's a whole different recovery setup for the rest of the time. So that's what I'm most interested in, is how he holds up during the time.
All right, there's Alex Brink. And that's, my two questions would be this. At age 44, last played in 2020, 17 seasons in the NFL. Phillip Rivers has been around. A lot of experience. But that's a long time, 5 years, 1,800 days. So my question would be this. 5 years removed, how do you get the timing down? Because the speed of the NFL game is ridiculous. And even when you talk to high-level college athletes, quarterbacks, or anyone else that plays, and they jump into the league the first year, they're blown away by the speed and athleticism of the guys they're facing on the other side. And you hear that from quarterbacks, they think they have an open window, and it's not open. It closes quick in the NFL. So how do you adjust to the speed of the game with the timing and the rhythm and everything else? I mean, we know that Rivers can still sling it. I'm not worried about that. It's just the timing, the presence, the pocket awareness, all of that. Because when you're removed from the game, even with the experience he's had and playing as many games as he had over the course of many years, I mean, I just don't know how you can turn that back on after, 5 years. But I love the interaction. According to the report, Rivers said, I saw the injury live. I feel terrible for Daniel, and I have to admit, I thought, I wonder if Shane is going to call me. And, of course, Shane Steichen, the head coach for the Colts, did call Phillip. They've known each other for quite some time, have a good relationship, and I think Steichen was on staff there and with the Chargers when Phillip was the quarterback. And according to Steichen, he said, what do you think? And Rivers responded by saying, quote, dadgummit, let's freaking go. And the word dadgummit is hilarious because my grandpa used to use that all the time. But Phillip Rivers is known for being a trash talker, but he doesn't cuss. He won't swear or say naughty words. But I can picture Phillip Rivers saying, dadgummit, let's go. So I love it. I want Phillip Rivers to start this weekend. I don't need to see Riley Leonard. Put Phillip out there and let's see what he does against that Seahawks defense. The Seahawks defensive front, which has been amazing, so quick, and the pressure they've applied has been terrific. If Phillip might change his mind real quick. If you're going to come back and play a game after 5 years off at the age of 44, I'm not so sure Seahawks Stadium's the best place to start. But I understand what the Colts are doing. Here's the problem. It's past the trade deadline. So what do you have access to? Brett Rippon? Riley Leonard? Some other practice squad dude who isn't any good? I understand what they're trying to do. They're sitting there still in a position to make the postseason. So they're probably thinking like, hey, if we can bring someone in to stabilize things, we can still make the postseason. I just don't know. It's tough. It's real tough. So right now in the AFC, the Colts are just on the outside looking in at 8th. Denver is 1, followed by New England. Jacksonville. Pittsburgh is 4th because they lead the AFC North after the win in Baltimore. Chargers are 5th at 9-4. They're 2nd in the AFC West behind Denver. Buffalo at 9-4, 2nd in the East behind New England. The Texans a game back in the AFC South. And you've got Indianapolis sitting there at 8-5. So the Colts are still very much alive for the postseason. So they're probably thinking, hey, let's bring Rivers in. If Leonard can't get it done or the knee's not right, at least we have someone with experience that we believe can go in and operate the offense. And we'll see. And Shane Steichen, a terrific offensive mind. If there's anybody that can put Phillip in a position to have success, it would be Shane Steichen. But can you imagine that? Because I just turned 50. Phillip is 44. Can you imagine playing in the NFL after 5 years off against elite athletes? 5 years off at age 44? Like, part of me just admires Phillip for having the balls to do that. Like, that's a manly thing to do, dadgummit. So I don't know. I don't know how it's going to look, but I hope it happens this weekend. And I got to be honest with you, I watched that whole Jags game. Like, Riley Leonard did not look awful. He didn't look bad. You know, there were some turnovers, the weather, it was raining. I mean, things just went sideways, you know, for the Jags, especially after Daniel Jones went down. But I feel bad for Jones because he was putting himself in a position to get really paid. And he was out there with a hairline fracture and a fibula, and he rips up the Achilles on the other side. Like, what type of luck do you have to have? That's horrible. So there you have it. That's the latest with the Colts in the NFL. There are some terrific games this weekend. I mean, terrific games. The top game, Bills at the Patriots at 10 o'clock on CBS. Right now, Buffalo favored by a point. New England won the first game in Buffalo. This one here is at Foxborough, and it's very simple. Patriots are 11-2. Bills are 9-4. If New England wins that game, they essentially lock up the division because they'd have the season sweep on Buffalo. They would be 3 games up, but essentially 4 because they have the tiebreak. So the Patriots can end the Bills' bid for the AFC East if they win this weekend. And what's crazy, as much as Buffalo has struggled, as a Bronco fan, the team I fear the most in the AFC is Buffalo. And that's because of Josh Allen. But they do have some issues, some warts. They're not perfect. And I would say game number 2 on the slate in the afternoon, CBS at 1:25. Packers at the Broncos. Packers, one of the best teams in the NFL. Broncos right now, the number 1 seed in the AFC at 11-2. They've won 10 straight. They're unbeaten at home at 6-0. Packers-Broncos is a great game. And I think those are the 2 best. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Aaron Fentress at 5:20. And I'm going to share with you a couple of thoughts from Alex Brink on the committee, on the Washington State coaching search, and also, you know, Kurt Cignetti and the job he's done at Indiana. It's pretty remarkable. And the people within the game have taken notice and really appreciate the work he's put in. All right, I appreciate your time. Rip City Radio text line 88528. You can call the show at 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Or you can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. From the 503, hey, Chad, do you ever collect any Blazers memorabilia, cards or jerseys or something? If so, please tell us a little bit about it. I'm buried in cards. Been thinking of digging them out and going down memory lane. Thanks. Yeah, I do. I collect Trailblazers memorabilia. I was a big-time card collector when I was younger. I regret it because I gave away some of my good cards when I was hard up for cash, like at 15. And I think I got taken by a couple of guys who own card shops. But I still have a lot of, basketball, football, and baseball cards. The one thing that was one of my favorite things to do when I was younger was have my mom buy Fran's bread because they had collectible basketball cards in the loaf of bread, which I thought was genius. Also, my man Mark hooked me up with the entire set of Trailblazer Dairy Queen glasses from back in the day. So I've got all of the collectible Dairy Queen glasses, which is awesome. I have all of the recent collectible glasses that have been given out. And the Blazers have got more glasses coming up this year. I think the Dame glass is coming out on Sunday for the Warriors game, which is great. So I love the collectible glasses, and I've got those displayed on my desk at home. I also have do you remember the Brandon Roy Leatherman that they handed out at one of the games? I still have that. And so I do. I have collectibles, and some of the stuff I've given away because as I've gotten older, if I have an opportunity or find a youngster or somebody that's into it, if I can give them something to add to their collection that can, give them a little bit of joy, I'll do that sometimes. But most of my collectibles, my sports memorabilia, is either Trailblazer or Denver Bronco oriented. I've got a lot of John Elway stuff. I got a lot of Bronco stuff. And so I like to have that. But at the same time, a lot of it's in storage, and I'm not displaying it, which is unfortunate. But I do have, I would say, of the Trailblazer stuff, like I love those collectible glasses. And it reminds me of, when I was younger. There were a lot of cool things that we used to get when we were younger. I love going to 7-Eleven. Like they would do the movie promotions with like the Slurpee cups. And I was a big Superman fan, so I have collectible cups from 7-Eleven, which were the Slurpee cups. They also used to have they would do some stuff with the NFL. So I've got a couple of Denver Bronco, like travel mugs from 7-Eleven. So I'm always looking for unique things like that. I also enjoyed the stuff that you could get in cereal boxes, like all the good toys, whether it be McDonald's or the cereal boxes. Like we had all the good stuff when we were younger. And a lot of the stuff now just doesn't appear to be as good. But the Dairy Queen glasses are amongst my favorite. And these glasses the Blazers have been giving out the last year. And we got the Dame one coming up on Sunday. These are like sweet, legit pint glasses. And the artwork on it is terrific. And I think last year was Donovan Clingan, Shaden Sharp, and Scoot Henderson. And then they had the Rip City glass at the end of the year. Let's go to Knox, who's on I-84. That's unfortunate. Knox, I appreciate the phone call. You're up on the Rip City Drive. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad, orange and blue, baby.
That's right, man.
I remember, I don't know if you remember, I talked to you preseason. I had the Broncos at 10-3 right now. I'm glad they're 11-2, but it was not the 11-2 that I thought. I thought we'd lose to a couple of different teams than the ones we did. But I'm wondering what you're thinking about these next 4 games. I see us winning at least 2 of them. I'm worried about this Green Bay one, but other than that, I think we're good with the other ones. And the San Diego, man, you can tell how long I'm a fan. The LA one, that's the other one I'm worried about. The other ones I think we'll win. I think we're ending at 13-4 or 14-3 this year, and we're going to take the AFC.
Well, which one? You got to pick a record because I'm going to tell you right now, 13-4 is not good enough if they want the number 1 seed. They need to, in my estimation, Knox, they need to win 3 of their final 4. Well, here's a question for you because it's down to New England and Denver for the top spot in the AFC, and the only thing I care about right now is the number 1 seed. So let's Let's go through these games right now. Let's be honest about this, and we'll go through the games. So the Broncos have, let's see here. They're going to start up this Sunday with Green Bay in Denver. Who do you think is going to win the game?
It's in Denver. I'll give the Broncos that game in Denver.
Okay, home against Jacksonville.
That's an easy one. Denver.
Okay, what about at Kansas City?
That one I'm worried about, man. Kansas City we don't play good in. But, if we can pull that one off, it's the L.A. one I'm worried about. They beat us this year, but I think we're a lot better team from when they beat us.
Hold on.
I think,
Alex, hold on. So are they going to win at Kansas City or lose? Take your pick.
I think Kansas City's gone downhill. I think we're going to win that one too.
Okay, and then what are they going to do against the Chargers?
It's tough. Is that it? I can't remember. I'm driving, man. Is that at home or is that at Chargers?
It's in Denver.
Okay, shoot it. We have the advantage there, so there's a very good chance we win that one. Man, I've been a Bronco fan since before you were born, so I'm taking all of it with me right now. So I think we can win 4 out of the last 4. But
wait a second, Knox. When you first called, you thought that they were going to go 2-2 down the stretch. I just gave you their last 4 games. You think they're going to win every one of them?
Well, now that you mention it like it is, I didn't realize we had so many at home. The only one we have away is the KC one, and KC's going downhill. So there's a chance we're going to win 3 out of the last 4, which puts us at 14-3. We have a harder schedule than the Patriots, but if we keep pace with them or they keep pace with us, we still have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, the tiebreaker. They can finish with the exact same record as New England, and they would have home field advantage. So if you look at the Patriots' schedule, here's who the Patriots have coming up. They got Buffalo this Sunday. So that's going to be a tough game. And right now, Buffalo is a short favorite on the road. At Baltimore, at the Jets, home against the Dolphins. So the Broncos need to go 3-1 down the stretch, more than likely to be able to lock up home field. 2-2 is probably going to get them punked, and they'll be in the 2nd seed. So that's all you need to know, James. You're pulling for 3-1, and you need the Patriots to drop a game, preferably this game coming up on Sunday against Buffalo. But that's all I care about, the number 1 seed, because only one team gets the bye now. And if you get the bye, you're only playing 2 games. Both will be at home. And obviously the Broncos, with that pass rush, have a significant advantage being in the Mile High Air. Let's go out to James in Portland. James, my man, what's going on, brother?
This is Nick Batoon, not James.
Batoon
Rich. You were talking collectibles, and I know you have baguettes of mine stale in your collectibles. What's up, Chad?
Dude, my brother. Do you have any of the Dairy Queen glasses or what?
Of course, bro. I even have all the McDonald's USA team. I have that whole set of, Jordan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those are legendary. Mullen, Drexler's in it. But no, the Blazer ones are sweet. I missed out on the ones last year, but I heard Dame's coming up. I'd love to have the Dame one.
I know. That's coming up on Sunday. Dude, I forgot about those McDonald's, Team USA glasses. Those things are, oh, my gosh, those are so good.
Those are legendary. Legendary. But do you have any Steve Atwater signed gear? He is the most legendary. I just love Steve Atwater and Carl Mecklenburg, right? Wasn't he an old school Bronco, I think, right?
He was. And what was great about Mecklenburg is he was drafted in the 11th round, and he turned out to be one of the all-time greats. And I remember Steve Collier, the old defensive coordinator, would line him up everywhere. That guy was a beast.
Yeah, dude, the dudes that taped up their fingers just drilled guys in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Carl Banks. So... But I just was also calling Chaz because what is this, Broncos radio hour?
It is.
I mean, I know you guys are stoked, but when do you actually have to score points in the playoffs, Chad? You got to tell Peyton to put the good old bong down, man. But also, I just want to say, awesome work on the Blazers. You got Trav traveling away. I just love how you two are running the ship now. I go way back to your guys' radio days together. I'm not talking the recent ones. I'm talking the old school days, dude. And I just want to call and say keep up the good work. It's so awesome to have a Blazer team we can root for that's young. They got Kamar playing some defense, which is unheard of in today's league. But yeah, you got to get me in there, bro. I'll come in for a little radio hour with you, and you got to introduce me to Lynn Masterson. I still am trying to see if she wants to go out with me, Chaz.
I love Lynn's voice.
Anyway,
All
I got to run,
hold
brother.
On.
I got to get my son to school.
Hold on.
Well,
hold
what's
on
up?
for 1 second.
Yo.
James, I'm not joking. Like, you are welcome to come and join me for a show. I would love to have you in studio for 3 hours. That would be truly amazing.
We will absolutely set it up. I'll bring the fire. I'll do sports too, I promise. But yeah, man, I'll hit you up, DM you and, keep it up with the Blazers. And dude, Sharp is the new Vince Carter. I don't care what anybody says. That guy's hops are Vince Carter-esque. And we'll talk about it live, brother.
Oh, dude, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it, bro. Awesome, man. Peace.
There you go. There's James. Oh, I forgot about those McDonald's glasses with Team USA, with the greatest basketball team ever put together. And yeah, it is Bronco Hour. It is my show, and I love the Denver Broncos. And they've won 10 straight games, so it's also a relevant sports topic. They've won 10 consecutive football games. And my man Knox is out of control. He calls up and he's like, I think they're going to go 2-2 and finish 13-4. And then I gave him each of their games. He's like, I think they're going to win that one, and that one. So he thinks they're going to go 4-0. The bottom line is, I think 3-1 is what's going to be needed to get home field. I don't know if the Broncos are going to win the game this weekend. I think the Packers match up really well. I'm concerned about the game. The Packers are a short favorite on the road in Denver. That's going to be tough. Like, the Packers are really good, and they're starting to come together and play good football. They're a good defensive team. They're getting healthy at receiver, and I like Jordan Love. That's a tough game. Now, James made the point about the offense. Here's the reality right now. If you're Denver or you're Houston, the one thing we've seen in the postseason over the years in the NFL is that when your defense is dominant, like if you have a dominant lockdown defense, you can win games and go far. Defense, it's very simple football, even with all the innovation. You stop the run and you can run the football a bit. You can do a lot of good things in football. But the Broncos' defense is legit. I just looked it up today. They got 55 sacks. The Broncos lead the NFL in sacks. They've also given up the fewest amount of sacks. So Bo Nix avoids the negative plays. The Broncos' defense gets after the quarterback, and, yeah, they're good. I'm excited about the Broncos. And the reality is about Denver, they're probably ahead of schedule based on having Nix in year number 2. But here's what I know about sport. This could be the Patriots. This could be the Broncos. You don't know, and there's no guarantee you're going to get back in a position like this to be able to win a championship. So you simply have to go all in and do whatever it takes to capitalize on the opportunity. Denver has won 10 straight. They've got a chance to get the number 1 seed. You simply have to get it done because there's no guarantee you're going to have a look at it like this ever again. Same thing with the Patriots. They're ahead of schedule right now. But, man, they're playing good football. Defense has been opportunistic. I love their coach. And Drake May has been awesome. Attacking downfield, making plays with his legs, keeping things alive. Mike Vrabel's been dynamite with the Patriots. We knew that was a good hire, but, man, 10 straight. And I know the Patriots, they've had the easiest schedule in the NFL, but so what? It is hard to win games in the NFL. It's really hard to win close games, and I think that's a skill. But when you rip off 10 straight, I don't care what your schedule is or who you've played, you're doing something right. Because the NFL is constructed for parity. It's hard to win games. It's hard to sustain, greatness over a long period of time based on the way the league's constructed. But I am excited. The playoffs are going to be great. Much in the same way I look at the college football playoff. I love the matchups. Love it. Duke, the UPS driver, just jumped in. He said, I got a bunch of the old Blazer Beanie Babies. Do you remember under the Slurpee cups there used to be a prize? I do remember that. Why'd they get rid of that? Man, all the great prizes were back when we were kids. I loved the toys that came in the McDonald's boxes. My cousin Darren worked at McDonald's when he was, in high school. And so what he would do when I was living in Colorado, when I would go to visit Darren, he would take me to the McDonald's he worked at. And I loved getting hotcakes there when I was younger. So he'd give me hotcakes, and then he would save the toys in the back, and he would just give them to me. And they had great toys back then. Even some of the stuff that you could pull at the bottom of the cereal boxes like Hot Wheels and some different cars and stuff. But they, of course, like anything else, they deemed a lot of that stuff to be unsafe. Because kids, when they get a toy like that, they start putting it in their mouth and they would choke on it and stuff. So everything became a liability. So they stopped putting good toys in the cereal boxes. And I loved it, too, because back in the day, when my grandma would get the big tub of the Cracker Jacks, the big tub, not the little box, but the big tub, and there was always really sweet toys that were in the bottom of that. And you'd have to dig it out. And that was part of the fun, man, was digging that stuff out. And, the ball cards. My Aunt Vicky would take me to this spot in Denver. I forgot the name of the shop. But it was great because they had basketball cards, football cards, baseball cards, collectibles, and comics. So it was like everything you could possibly want. And I've been trying to encourage my cousin Darren, if he dies before me, to a place in his will that I get all his comics. He's got enough cards and comics to open up his own shop. He's never done it, but he could if he wanted to. I don't know. I just love flipping through all the old stuff. And I don't know why that gum was so awesome, but you'd open up a new pack of cards and you get the crunchy gum with the powdery substance on it. And just the feel and the way it smelled and the feel of that, like that special paper that they wrap the cards in. What's better than that? I used to love that kind of stuff. And so I've got a few really good cards. I got a Babe Ruth card that's worth quite a bit. I've got a couple of Michael Jordan cards, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. And then I have a ton of Elway cards. I probably got more John Elway than anything else. But, I love going through the collectibles and looking at that stuff. And I used to love flipping through cards. And what was great, back in the day is you'd flip it over and they'd have stats and different details on the player. So I learned a lot, before the internet, back when I was younger. I learned a lot about different baseball, football, basketball players based on what I'd read on the back of the cards, flipping through it and organizing everything. And then my cousin Darren was real anal about, card care. So he showed me how to, box everything, how to pack it, how to keep it safe so it wouldn't get damaged, the whole shebang. And there you have it. But the Slurpee cups were great. 7-Eleven always had great, back in the day, they always had great, different promotions and stuff to get people to go in there. I loved it. And that was back before I worried about nutrition. So I'd be eating like the nachos and the big bites, getting the collectibles, the whole shebang. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Aaron Fentress is going to talk some Ducks with me at 520. Now, you can jump on board. Hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. You can call me at 503-248-0620. And one other thing that James was right about, it is nice to have a team that's fun and easy to root for, the Trailblazers this year. And the good news is they're going to start getting some guys back in the lineup here in the very near future. And I think their best basketball is ahead of them. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, I've got Pete Carroll trying to explain that decision to kick a field goal as time expired at the end of that Broncos game on Sunday. And another good reminder of why gambling is so insane. So the Broncos were 7.5-point favorites. And they scored to make it 24-7 with like 5 minutes to go in the game. So they're up by 17 with 5 minutes to go. Favored by 7.5. It looks like an easy cover at that point for the Broncos. Well, the Raiders get a touchdown to Cedric Jackson. Kenny Pickett came in relief and threw a touchdown pass to Cedric Jackson to make it 24-14. So it's a 10-point spread, and the Broncos get the ball. Now, the Raiders had attempted an onside kick but did not recover, so the Broncos took over in plus territory, and they're able to drive down into field goal range, and they were faced with a 4th down and short. They had gotten the Raiders to burn all their timeouts, and it was past the 2-minute warning. So all they had to do was pick up a first down, the game's over. Well, the Broncos go for it instead of kick a field goal. And I guess at that point you're up by 10. It doesn't matter whether you kick a field goal or not. But they elected to go for it because if you get the first down, they can just kneel on it and run out the clock. Well, they got stopped, and the Raiders got the ball back, and they made a couple of plays to get into plus territory. And it was one of those situations where they had a scramble from Pickett. He did not get out of bounds, so clock was running. The Raiders had no timeouts. And then the final play, or what appeared to be the final play, Pickett completed a ball upfield. And when the pass was caught, there was probably like 6 seconds on the clock. Well, the clock should have run out because the Raiders had no way to stop the clock, and they had to run up and try to get to the line to spike it or whatever. But the official threw a flag on Broncos safety Brandon Jones for delay of game because he was laying on top of one of the Raiders. And the penalty at that point is a little bit ridiculous because you got a 10-point game with less than 10 seconds to play. It doesn't matter at that point. Why are you throwing a flag? And I guess the reason why the gamblers were so bitter is that delay of game in that spot where you got a player laying on top of another player trying to slow him down, that flag is rarely thrown. So they throw the flag, and they call the penalty, and because of that, it's like a free timeout. It stops the clock. And after they reviewed it, they put like 6 seconds on the clock, and Pete Carroll rolls out his field goal unit to kick a field goal. I don't know why, but he did. And they made the field goal as time expired, 24-17 the final. Broncos win, but do not cover the 7.5-point spread. And, of course, gamblers or anybody that's watching that is like, why are they kicking that field goal? That's a little bit suspicious. Why did the ref throw that flag? The conspiracy theories were flying. Here is Pete Carroll explaining his decision with the late field goal.
I can't bend and twist and go with whatever the public sentiment is, or one person's sentiment, for that matter, regardless of who it is. I just can't do that and do my job the right way to the best of my ability. So, if you notice, I was battling with the official, making a plea because we saw 8 seconds, 7, which would have given us a chance to kick the field goal, kick an onside kick, and maybe have a second left. And then when it went down to 5 or went down to 3 or whatever they did, and then they put it back to 5 or whatever, then I knew it was going to look stupid. Like you couldn't figure out why we were doing it. So there was a real clear thought what we were trying to get done there, just to take it down to the very last click. That might not be good enough for you. I understand that. But that's what I think you could see what we were trying to do, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out for the gamblers. If you had the Broncos minus 7.5, that field goal did not work out well. That was brutal. That is a bad, bad beat. That's one of the worst beats I've ever seen. A flag for something you never see a flag for, delay a game. The clock should have run out, and then Pete Carroll, for some dumb reason, decides to roll out his field goal unit and kick a field goal right as time expires. That is horrific. Now, if you're on the flip side and you've got the Raiders plus 7.5, you're like, wait, they threw a flag? They're going to kick a field goal? Are you kidding me? It's like Christmas. Unreal. All right, Tony in Portland has reached out. He says, your last segment reminded me I was a recycler in the early 90s in Westland and Lake Oswego. They would not take the free Dairy Queen Sundae or French fries coupon off the back of the cereal boxes. I was racing and wrestling grown men for these free food items. Good times, bro. That's what I'm talking about. You know, I used to do a lot of that. I would save the do you remember that, where you would cut off the proof of purchase from like the cereal boxes? So I would do that, and I would collect them, and you could send them in to get, you know, different toys or different items, collectibles. I don't know if you grew up with green stamps, but I certainly did with my grandma in Oklahoma. So every time you go to the store and you'd make purchases, they would give you green stamps. And then what you'd do is you'd take the green stamps and licking them and pasting them to the little booklet was awful. How I did not get some type of disease or cancer from licking those stamps, I have no idea. But you would get the green stamps from the store, and then you had these little booklets where you would, you know, break off a stamp, lick it, and stick it on the booklet. And then when you filled up the booklet, you could take it into the green stamp store and be able to turn that in for different items. And it was pretty awesome because they had like bikes, basketball hoops, you know, like wiffle balls. It was like a store filled with all these goodies, and you would, you know, redeem your green stamps for these different things. So that was one of my fun things to do. And we used to collect like the aluminum cans and take them to the recycler, but my favorite was the green stamps. And my grandma would get the booklets, and then that was the summer project, was to fill those booklets up and then go and redeem them for different stuff. I loved all that. Yeah, those were the days, the collectibles and stuff. So much fun. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can jump on board. You can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. Aaron Fentress is going to talk Ducks coming up at 520. All right, the Trailblazers return to action tomorrow night after 3 days off. They're going to meet the Pelicans in New Orleans. The Blazers right now favored by 5.5. Tip-off is set for 5. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620 from college football. Michigan has fired head coach Sharon Moore for an inappropriate relationship. Biff Poggi has been named interim head coach for their bowl game against Texas. From the NFL, the Colts will be in Seattle to meet the Seahawks on Sunday afternoon. Phillip Rivers is an option to start after joining the team this week. Riley Leonard's status for Sunday is unknown at this time after a knee injury on Sunday against Jacksonville. And Daniel Jones now done for the year with a ruptured Achilles. From baseball, first baseman Pete Alonso and the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a $155 million deal. Army and Navy will meet Saturday in Maryland. Kickoff at noon on CBS. Midshipmen are favored by 6. All right, Aaron Fentress is going to join me coming up at 5:20. I want to get his take on the Ducks. And he also brought up a good point about Dan Lanning. How many players did the Ducks lose off to last year's squad that was the number one seed in the postseason? I forgot the exact number, but it was substantial. And yet the Ducks are right back in a position to challenge for a national championship with one loss. You got new players across the board, and somehow he's not one of the finalists for Coach of the Year. That doesn't make sense. I think Dan Lanning's done a terrific job. And I think the Ducks are one of like 8 or 9 teams that have a legit chance to win a national championship. I mean, I don't know. Would I favor Indiana and Ohio State? Probably. But those two teams are not head and shoulders above everybody else. Oklahoma's got one of the best defenses in the country. Alabama, aside from the blowout loss in the Sugar Bowl, they've been, pretty strong throughout the course of the year. Ole Miss has been dynamic. And there's a lot of great stories. Texas Tech, if it just goes to show you with Tech, if you're the Red Raiders, spending money in the portal did not hurt them. Jeez, their defensive line's unbelievable. So we're going to have a lot of great matchups. But Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches in the country and should have gotten recognition for as such based on what he's been able to do with this squad that lost so many players. And I thought going into the year that with so many new faces up front on the offensive line that it would take time for that group to gel. But their offensive line's been dynamic throughout the season, and then their defensive line has been great. I just like the way that he's changing the mentality of the Oregon football program. They're a more physical, bigger body type team now. That can win in the trenches. And you've got to be able to win in the trenches to have a chance to compete against this group. Because Indiana does. And Indiana showed on Saturday in that Big Ten title game, it's not just their offense, their defense. They were the more physical team. Their defense locked up Ohio State. Texas Tech is a physical football team. No matter who you match up with, you're going to have to win battles in the trenches. And Oregon's better positioned to do that now, which is great. So we shall see. But Aaron Fentress is going to join us coming up at 5:20. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things that Alex Brink said yesterday. And we'll do that here in about 15 minutes. But I want you to hear what he had to say about Phillip Rivers making his return to the NFL at 44. He hasn't played a game in like 1,800 days. He shared some insight on how to fix college football. On the playoff field that's been set by the committee. On the Washington State coaching search. I also asked him about how to coach physicality. Like these teams that we've seen, whether it be, Oregon or Indiana or Ohio State or Texas Tech, how do you coach physicality? How does that become your identity? And then, of course, get his thoughts on Coach Cignetti, who's done a great job. I mean, he's obviously going to win Coach of the Year, and rightfully so. I think what impresses me the most about Cignetti One, what he's done at Indiana in just 2 years, the turnaround. But you got to keep in mind, Indiana, they've got a large alumni base, but their resources and commitment to football is not the same as Ohio State or some of the other schools in the country. So what he's been able to do is utilize the portal. He goes out and he's found over the last 2 years players that he believes fits what he's trying to accomplish at Indiana. And these are not five-star guys. And then what you do is you coach them up. So I think a large part of what we're seeing with the Hoosiers is just Cignetti finding guys that he believes fits his program and the mentality and what they're trying to do. And he coaches them up to where they become productive, dominant football players. It's unbelievable. And then on top of that, he stayed. Now, I thought for sure he'd wind up at Penn State or somewhere else, but he decided to stay at Indiana, and they took care of him. So it's a great story. Cignetti's been great. But for them to go in undefeated on the season, win the Big Ten championship, get their first Big Ten title in like 60 years, and, they proved it to me in the Oregon game. I think, wasn't it the conventional wisdom going into that game that it was a step up in class for Indiana, that physically they wouldn't be able to match up with the Ducks, and they were on the road, and they'd have to deal with the crowd noise, and what happened? They physically beat up the Ducks, won the battle at the line of scrimmage, and then Mendoza just made big play after big play when he had to move the chains, including the touchdown drive in the response to the pick six. That blew me away. And then we saw them, come back and execute down the stretch to get that win over Penn State. And a lot of the other teams they faced this year, they've dominated. So very impressed with Indiana. And with Cignetti, he's a red ass, right? His personality's a little bit weird. He's extremely confident, and I guess I would be too if I were him. But even though I'm not sure I like his personality, I respect the heck out of the guy. What a job he's done. I'm anxious to see if there'll be any type of impact on Ole Miss with no Lane Kiffin. But Alex told me yesterday, and he made a good point, maybe it actually is helpful for that group to not have Lane there because he was such a distraction right up until the time he took the job at LSU. So it might help them and galvanize the group now that they don't have that distraction. They can just go out and focus on playing on football. But Ole Miss is one of those teams. I got it early in the season with their win over LSU. Their physicality and the talent they've been able to put together on this squad has been great. I love their running back. And then Trinidad Chambliss has been quite the find at quarterback. Very productive. Very competent in running that scheme, that offense that's put together by Charlie Weiss Jr. I like the way that they call their game. So very impressed with Ole Miss. The Ducks, obviously impressed with them and Dante Moore and all the things they've done up front. The prove-it-to-me game for Oregon was that win at Iowa when in bad weather, wet conditions, you couldn't rely on Dante Moore. You had to line up and run the football. Dante Moore made the big play late to set them up for the win, but it was the Ducks winning the battle at the line of scrimmage against a physical football team and running it when they had to get the job done. I also thought the pressure they put on Washington in that second half up in Seattle was really nice. So the Ducks have been impressive. Oklahoma's defense has been phenomenal. Their offense has been somewhat brutal over the second half of the season, but their defense it's no joke. So Alabama-Oklahoma is going to be a very competitive game, and I'm looking forward to watching that. And there you have it. And, like we said before, Notre Dame, I have no problems with the teams that the committee chose. James Madison and Tulane are in based on the rules that were set up, so don't blame them. Miami beat Notre Dame. Head-to-head has always got to matter, and it should always be the number one tiebreak. Those two teams played. They had similar resumes, so head-to-head came into play. And, of course, Alabama's going to get in because they played in the SEC title game. And you're not going to penalize a team for taking a third loss if they're playing in the SEC championship. So there you have it. We'll see how things shake out. And my bigger concern is, I don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to continue to construct. I don't know if they're going to expand to, maybe 24 teams sometime in the near future. But it would look like bowl games are on their way to dying out because you're going to have so many teams who will either elect not to play in a bowl game or players who opt out because they don't want to risk injury. So we'll see how things continue to go. But we're going to get more teams in the playoff. I think it's going to go to 16 and then eventually maybe 24. And we'll see how things work out. Now, with this playoff, they've got to get away from the bowl games to begin with. Every game should be played on a campus site aside from the championship game. And I'm hoping that they get to a point where that's the case. Because it's going to be pretty awesome to see the Ducks playing a home game against James Madison in the playoff. I love the campus site games. I can't wait for this year's playoff. I think the matchups and the seeding is looking pretty good, so it's going to be nice. It's going to be real nice. The other big story in college football today, Michigan fired their head coach, Sharon Moore, due to an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. If you jump online and search the internet, there's speculation out there, but Michigan got rid of him. What I want to know is if Michigan had beat Ohio State and they were in a position to go to the playoff, would they have covered it up and kept him as their coach, or would they have fired him anyways? I don't know the answer to that. But I guess that's the Michigan way. Cheat both on and off the field. And there you have it. 503-248-0620. I'm still a little bit hot right now. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I had the second phase of that shingles vaccine yesterday. I got it done in the morning. My left shoulder is still sore from where they gave me the shot, and I hate that. It's like I'm a grown man, and I can't even lift my shoulder above I've got limited range in my shoulder because of a stupid shot. But what was really weird last night is like I think I reacted to it, but I started running a fever, and I started shivering and shaking uncontrollably. And so when I went to bed last night, I had like sweats on. I mean, I was like fully clothed, and I had the space heater on because I was really cold and shivering. And when I woke up this morning, my fever must have broke somewhere in the middle of the night, but I have never woke up as wet as I was this morning, like sopping wet from sweat. So my fever broke, and my whole body was drenched. I felt disgusting, and my sheets were destroyed. I just washed them like 2 days ago. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I get home tonight is wash the sheets again. But it was bizarre, and I felt fine. I went from feeling like I was going to die to waking up soaked and feeling normal. And I worked out today and felt fine. Oh, it's the worst. I hate that when you're shaking uncontrollably and you're bundled up and you're still freezing. And I was like bundled up under the covers, and I finally fell asleep. And then when I woke up, man, I was drenched. Don't you hate that feeling? I was clammy all over. Yeah. But I finally got that taken care of. 503-248-0620. Also, hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line. If you know of a good landscaping business that specializes in leaf removal that can come into your yard and get rid of all the leaves, let me know. Because I had all the shenanigans with that place I had called and set up the appointment. No show on the appointment, no heads up, no nothing. It's like, why did I go through the process to set it up and then have no one communicate with me when I reached out, and then the day comes and goes and no one's there? Nothing. Nada. So if you know of a good leaf removal business, please let me know. Just hit me up on the text line at 88528. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Bowl games will kick off this weekend. We got Army and Navy on Saturday. If you have not been to an Army-Navy game, Travis and I went back in 2018 when it was in Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial. That was a great experience. The pageantry, and there were people from all around the world who were there at that game. That was awesome. All right, we'll come back, and a few different things I want you to hear from Alex Brink, including how to coach physicality, on the Washington State coaching search, and on the great Curt Cignetti, who's done a heck of a job at Indiana. That's coming up next. Aaron Fentress is going to join me at 5:20 here on the Rip City Drive. All right, a couple of things I wanted you to hear with my conversation with Alex Brink yesterday. First off, Indiana, the Hoosiers unbeaten. They just won the Big Ten championship, defeating Ohio State, and their quarterback looks to be the eventual Heisman Trophy winner coming up this weekend. They've been awesome. Mendoza's been great, and he showed great toughness in that win over Ohio State. But physically on defense, they were, just like we saw at the game at Autzen, man, they were awesome. But Brink talked about the work of Cignetti and the job he's done in just 2 years on the job there in Bloomington.
Very much so. I mean, one of the things, and this, honestly, I didn't know a ton about Kurt Cignetti, like pretty much everybody else before he got to Indiana, right? And, you're just watching some of the things they're able to do, right? Like what stood out to me, there's some offensive things that I really like, but what stood out to me is just their intensity and discipline and physicality on defense. I mean, they went into Oregon and beat up Oregon. They went to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, beat up Ohio State. Like I thought that side of it was really impressive. And when you listen to Coach Cignetti talk, you start to kind of hear where that comes from, right? I mean, he's got very clear processes, and he wants the discipline in his program. He knows the path that it takes to create a hard-nosed football team. And that's really what stood out when it came to Indiana was the physicality on defense and just the strength of mind, right? They never seem to get wavered on really as a whole team, but especially offensively. I mean, I felt like they played very even-keeled at all times.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He's a very disciplined coach. He's got his processes and the way he wants things done, the execution he's looking for, and he coaches his guys up. What a job Kurt Cignetti has done. It's unbelievable. Indiana, my entire life, has been a basketball school. And now all of a sudden, they're the best team in football. It's unreal. Never would have thought that was possible. And yet here we are. So in regard to physicality, we're seeing it at Oregon with Dan Lanning. We see it at Indiana, Ohio State, Texas Tech. Like, how do you coach that? How do you make that your mentality? How do you get that into your program? Here's what Alex had to say.
I mean, that starts early in the off season, right? That's all the things the fans don't see. It's when the pads aren't on, when you're up at 5 a.m. and you're asked to do some very difficult physical work in the weight room or out on the field when it's cold, or, you got your whole team out there doing different conditioning drills. I mean, it's a mental thing, right? And there's a physical element to it, but to build tough football teams, you got to create tough people, which means you got to put them through hard times and hard situations and have them come out the other side and feel success and feel like they overcame something, and that creates that fortitude, that mental fortitude. And, I think that's, whatever that plan is, a lot of that's the strength staff. Nowadays there's sports psychology involved and, mental resources that people have. It's all of it combined with a head coach that's got a really clear vision.
All right, there's Brink talking about physicality. I also asked him about the Washington State coaching search. What do the Cougs need? Jimmy Rogers did a heck of a job, but now he's on his way to Iowa State. Matt Campbell stepped down from his role with the Cyclones. He's now going to be the coach at Penn State. So what's the answer for WSU?
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, Washington State, I think we're in a little bit of a tough spot. The fan base is very frustrated, understandably, with the last, kind of two coaches for Washington State, and Jake Dickert and Jimmy Rogers, who kind of both of them left what seemed to be suddenly, and made Coug fans feel like, if it's somebody from outside the Cougar family that's coaching Washington State, that they're just going to move on at the first opportunity they get. Now, my response to that is that's college football in general. That's every college football coach. They are only worried about upward mobility. And anytime anybody talks about culture, it's not culture for the fan base. It's culture for the team in that moment that would lead to success that ultimately will probably lead to them moving on. So that just is what it is. I think, for the Cougs, if they can find a alum or somebody with ties to the area that is qualified as a coach and understands the current landscape, I think that's great. There's probably a couple options out there, but if they can make a splash hire with somebody that'll come in and get the fan base excited and then win a few games in this new Pac-12, I mean, there's huge opportunity, Chad, with the new Pac-12. And look at it. I mean, James Madison and Tulane are in the college football playoff. Like, all you got to do is win games, right? And I think Washington State has the infrastructure, to do that when it comes to facilities and brand. but they need the right coach and they need some funding from the university to make it happen.
All right. So Washington State looking for a new coach. I did ask him about the playoff field. Any issues with the selections by the committee? How did he see it? Here's what Alex had to say.
I don't know that I had any issues with the team. I think there's always going to be something, right? That's just the reality of it. I think the idea of taking a team like Miami, right, and not just the ACC champion obviously made a ton of sense. At the same time, I feel like the committee keeps kind of getting in their own way by creating these what seem to be hard and fast rules about, right, what it takes to get in or the criteria to get in, and then they seem to change them every year.
Yeah.
So, I just think that the nature of that, it starts to feel a little disingenuous at times, and I think that's kind of their credibility is getting eroded, right? It probably started with Florida State, there's other instances, but it probably started with Florida State a couple of years ago, right, where, the quarterback gets hurt and they decide to keep him out just because they're not as good a team without the quarterback, apparently. I mean, things like that, I think are really, it's too bad that it's kind of come to that, but I guess that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
All right, there you have it. I'm still blown away by the whining and the crying from Notre Dame. And they elected not to participate in the bowl game, which is kind of a shame because we could have had Notre Dame and BYU in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That would have been fun, but Notre Dame decided not to participate. And really, you can't blame the ACC because Miami is a full-fledged member of the conference. And so the ACC got behind and supported their full-fledged member. Notre Dame is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like they want some of the benefits of being in a conference, but yet they still want their autonomy to be an independent. So the ACC did what they were supposed to do, which was defend one of their full-time members. And Notre Dame's upset about that. But really, they have no one to blame but themselves. When you have a schedule set up the way they did, and you really have 2 meaningful games on the schedule, and you lose both of them, you put yourself in that type of position. And that's on them. And they were both close, competitive games with Miami and with Texas A&M. Maybe the bigger question is, with college football, how do you fix it? Like, I don't have the answer to that. The weird thing is right now is that it is the wild, wild west. The only thing that's certain is the money that is flowing around. And you've got all of these different conference commissioners who are out doing work for their conference, whatever's in the best interest for their conference. So you have people going in different directions. And at some point, they're going to have to find a way to solve that. And so I ask Alex, how do you fix the problem?
Yeah, it's a good question because then you have to dive deep into the root of what, what is the motivation for everybody, right? Like if I'm going to have part of the reason there is no governing body or the NCAA has kind of, abdicated their role in all this is that, the SEC and the Big Ten commissioners, they don't want a governing body because right now they run the show, right? And so they're happy to have it happen how it is because it's best for their brands. And ultimately, when conference realignment comes around again in 2029, they're going to be at the top of the pecking order. And so, really, probably what it is you're probably going to need some government intervention, which is a disaster, obviously. But like somebody to say, like, no, we actually need to have some oversight here, or it needs to get so broken that the product really falls apart in a way that the TV money behind it, ESPN, Fox, and such says, all right, wait a minute, we actually need to have a little bit more structure here to make sure the product is good enough to put on TV and justify the dollars so that, fans aren't getting frustrated. Things like that. I mean, ultimately, but boy, I think that's so far off. I'd be hard pressed, to believe that something like that or anything like that would happen in the near future.
All right. One last thing I wanted to hear from Brink, and this goes back to Phillip Rivers, who is coming out of retirement to help the Indianapolis Colts, who suddenly have a slew of quarterback issues. Riley Leonard, the rookie backup, dinged up his knee in the game against Jacksonville. That came after Daniel Jones ripped up his Achilles. The Colts are at the Seahawks this weekend, and not a lot of answers at quarterback. So they brought in Phillip Rivers, who, according to reports, told Shane Steichen, the head coach, "Dadgummit, let's go." I mean, Phillip has not played in like 1,800 days. Last played in the NFL in 2020. So we're looking at a 5-year gap for a guy who's now 44 years old. I don't know how someone at that age, after that long of a layoff, can jump right back into the game and start playing football. with the speed, the timing, and everything that goes into it. Like, that's wild to me. So I asked Alex Brink, like, how do you prepare yourself? How do you do that? I'm not even sure Alex knows.
I mean, it's insane, to be honest with you. I don't know that I don't know that in theory it's possible. It tells you how, desperate Indianapolis is to find kind of a win now answer when there maybe isn't one, I guess, certainly on the market. Now, some of the stories about how Rivers and Shane Steichen are really close and have been talking all season, and, he just can walk in and understands the system, maybe makes more sense. But, it's funny, I think if you were to ask me, like, what I think, how this will play out for Philip Rivers, I think the first game will be totally fine. A little bit like Joe Flacco, right? Like, I think he'll be, like, totally fine. But, like, when you've been out of it that long and you're that old, like, you take a few hits and, like, it's a whole different recovery setup for the rest of the time. So that's what I'm most interested in, is how he holds up during the time.
All right, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect with Philip Rivers. I just know I like him. I like his attitude, his competitive desire. I think he's been coaching his son, so he's not like he hasn't just been sitting on the couch. So I think he's been around the game. He's been coaching. He's probably been throwing the football a little bit. But, man, the NFL is so tough, and the windows are so tight, and the athletes are so fast. And you know that because when you talk to high-level elite athletes coming out of college into the NFL, they're blown away by the speed of the game when they get to the NFL. Elite athletes, like, wow, I didn't know it was that fast. So we'll see. We'll see how things go. Oh, by the way, with the Seahawks, this is pretty impressive, but I think if they win out right now, they're going to have the number 1 seed in the NFC. Did you know that? That's pretty awesome. So if you look at the standings right now, in the AFC, it's really coming down to Denver and New England for the top spot, the number 1 seed. In the NFC, Rams and Seahawks. Both teams sit at 10-3. The Seahawks' remaining schedule: Colts, and then they host the Rams on the 18th on Prime Video, little Thursday night action. At the Panthers, and then at the 49ers. So a very difficult final quarter of the season for the Seahawks. I mean, the Colts, probably not so much, but the Rams, at Panthers, at 49ers is a tough way to finish. But if they win out, including that game against the Rams, they would have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. That's pretty impressive. And I thought the Seahawks would be a playoff team, but I did not expect them to be contending for the top spot in the conference. But, man, they've been good. McDonald's done a great job with the defense. And, again, the way you identify good coaches, when they come in and take over a program, how's their side of the ball, their expertise, how does it look? And the Seahawks defense has really, come together quickly. And I think the key for Sam Darnold, who's played really well this year, is just limiting, some of the risky plays, the risky passes. Don't have those multi-turnover type games, and they're going to be fine. But I love where Seattle's at right now. But that NFC West has turned out to be just probably even better than what we thought going into the year. With the competition and the teams that are there. I mean, the 49ers continue to win with significant injury. They're 9-4. And both the Rams and Seahawks sit at 10-3. And even that game against the Rams in L.A., where Darnold had multiple turnovers, Seattle was still in a position to win that game, but missed a long field goal at the end. And most impressive to me was Seattle, 6-1 away from home. They're winning road games. That's impressive to me. Winning road games. Now, the Broncos right now, how many teams are unbeaten at home? The Broncos are 6-0 at home, the only unbeaten team in their own building. But the Hawks have done it well. The Patriots also 6-0 away from home. Gosh, dang, with a young team. That's Mike Vrabel right there. That guy's a witch. As I mentioned yesterday, so we know pretty much which teams are going to be a part of the postseason on both sides. In the East, AFC, Patriots and Bills. That's 2. In the North, it's going to be one team, either the Steelers or the Ravens. That's 3. From the South, Jags and Texans. That's 5. In the West, you're going to have the Broncos and Chargers. That is your 7. The only thing that's left to really question is going to be, where those teams are slotted in the AFC. In the NFC right now, we're looking at the Eagles, the Packers and the Bears, the Bucks or the Panthers, and then 3 teams from the West in the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers. And those are going to be your 7 teams. It's just a matter of where the teams are going to be slotted. And right now, if I had to choose the 2 best teams, right now in the AFC, I would probably lean Denver as the best team, just based on their schedule compared to New England's. And in the NFC right now, I think the Packers look like the best team. But it changes week to week because 2 weeks ago it was the Rams. Then they lose at Carolina. Now I'm looking at the Packers coming off the win over the Bears. They look really good, but that could change again after this weekend. So we'll see. And I think for the Broncos, as I mentioned before, you're probably going to need to go 3-1 down the stretch. They have a game, 2 home games coming up against the Packers and Jaguars, a road game on Christmas Day at Kansas City, a home game against the Chargers to close out the year. And the Chargers, as much as they've been beat up, similar to the 49ers, suffering through massive injury, a great job by Jim Harbaugh and his staff to keep that team ready and in a position to win games. And they're coming off the overtime victory over the Eagles where, their defense was great. And Justin Herbert didn't have a great statistical game, but he showed toughness. He was battling through the surgically repaired left hand, trying to protect that. And he was getting the crap beat out of him by the Eagles' defensive front. And yet he was out there picking up first downs with his legs, coming up with timely throws, and doing whatever he could to put his team in a position to win. That's really impressive. Jim Harbaugh's tough. Justin Herbert's tough. That is a perfect pairing between coach and quarterback. It's wild. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. 88528. Brendan Slaughter is here. And the Blazers are going to be back in action tomorrow. They've got 2 games this week. They're going to take on the Pelicans in New Orleans tomorrow. Tip off at 5. Blazer game day starts at 3. And then Sunday, a 6 o'clock tip at home against the Warriors at Moda Center. Chris Burkhardt will have game day tomorrow at 3. And on Sunday, Blazer game day at 4 o'clock. All right, Aaron Fentress coming up at 5:20. I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Brendan, on first glance, who do you favor in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting field, Chad. My sneaky team that I just selfishly am keeping an eye on, Texas Tech. I saw them up and close and personal when they played Oregon State this year. I think that is, for cliches aside, one of the best teams money can buy in college football this year. I mean, I think it's pretty... if you're asking me on a favorite, I'd probably go Indiana, Ohio State, but don't discount Texas Tech. I think their win over BYU, they're playing good ball, and again, that defensive line is ferocious. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Texas Tech is a team to keep an eye on. But yeah, if I were going to pick a team, I would, probably start with one of the favorites like Indiana or Ohio State, because I think those are the two most complete teams in terms of what I've saw so far this year. But they're not indestructible either. So
no, and I think just kind of playing the matchups as they are, I expect Oregon to take down James Madison too. I think that could be a good game down in Eugene. But if you could get that Oregon Texas Tech matchup with Texas Tech coming off the bye in the Orange Bowl, that would be I'd really like to see that matchup. I think a good defense versus another good defense, and then whichever offense could come out. But other teams that I'm curious to see, Ole Miss, I want to see where Ole Miss's head is at right now with the whole Lane Kiffin saga, because they were a fun story. I really like rooting for them this year. Not quite as intrigued in the, Miami, Texas A&M side of things, but like you mentioned earlier, a lot of hype around Indiana after that Big Ten championship win. I'm kind of pulling for them selfishly because I think it'd be really cool to see the Hoosiers, make it far in the playoff too. But yeah, I think there's going to be some good matchups, and kind of like all have been saying, I don't think Notre Dame has a word, I suppose, but I don't think it's quite as dramatic as they're making it out to be either, Chad.
No, they're being all very dramatic. I do think I want that matchup bad. Texas Tech and Oregon, and we'll get it, man. That'd
be sweet. I mean, must-watch television.
I love it. I can't wait to see that matchup. I'm looking forward to that, and the physicality in that game will be off the charts, because Oregon is game, as is Texas Tech. But if you look at the bracket, so what are these second-round matchups we're going to get? We'll get Oregon and Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. I don't know who is going to win the Alabama-Oklahoma game, but one of those two teams will advance to meet Indiana in the Rose Bowl. You'll get Ole Miss and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That's going to be a great game. And then either Miami or Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl to take on Ohio State. Those are all great games. I did watch, the Tulane game in their conference title game against North Texas. And I know Tulane is, probably not going to beat Ole Miss, but their quarterback, Jake Retzloff, who came over from BYU.
Yeah.
And Tulane's played really well this year. And they physically got after North Texas in that game. They were very dominant. So we'll see. But, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think Oregon and Texas Tech that's going to be my favorite second-round matchup.
It'd be sweet. I'm curious to see, like you said, I'm very intrigued in that Alabama-Oklahoma matchup. I think Oklahoma's the better team, but is there a team, Chad, that has more pressure to prove they belong than Alabama after all the conversations, leading from the SEC championship game, their loss to Georgia and all those things? I wouldn't be surprised if there's, oodles amounts of pressure on Kalen DeBoer and company to, get that win. And maybe that turns out to be a sneaky good game, between an Alabama team that, there was a lot of back and forth on whether or not they should have made it, and an Oklahoma team that I think is pretty talented and who I really like playing with John Mateer at quarterback.
Yeah, Oklahoma's defense is arguably the best in the country. I don't know what's going on, but ever since the injury to Mateer, from the Texas game on, their offense has been hot trash. They can't run the football. They've had turnover issues. I don't know what's going on, but their offense is brutal. And it was rough down the stretch, too, in wins over Missouri and LSU.
I'm curious, too, Chad, your thoughts. Both G5 teams, Tulane, 17.5 point underdogs to Ole Miss, and James Madison, 21.5 to Oregon. Which team out of that G5 would you say would be more likely to surprise? I mean, I know you said you talked, with Alex Brink about being out at James Madison. I would be surprised if they came into Eugene and gave Oregon a real tough game, but maybe Tulane with, depending on where Ole Miss's head is at after the Lane Kiffin stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. The talent that the problem with those two games is that the talent disparity is so large. Like James Madison and Tulane have both had terrific seasons, but man for man when they line up,
Sure.
they're going to be up against it. But I do like Retzloff. He's a guy who can make plays, got a big arm. He's had a big time year coming over from BYU. But yeah, I mean the talent gap. Like Ole Miss is a really talented roster, and Oregon is. And the one thing about James Madison, defensively, they've been stout all year. We'll see what they can do, but it's just tough when you line up and you're undermanned at every position. But I love the playoff. Love the way it looks. Also, I got this hit from the Rip City Radio text line from the 503. It says, I love the NFL. It's literally week to week with playoff positioning. And that's so true. Things change every week. I mean, it is a week to week league based on what happens and who wins. And that's the way it's going to be this weekend because right now, New England is in control of the AFC East. But if they lose that game to Buffalo, then all of a sudden, the Bills are sitting there one game behind with a few games to go. Denver right now is in control. But if they lose to Green Bay, they still have a game coming up against the Chargers at the end of the year. And the LA Chargers are in a position to potentially win the AFC West. But I would say right now, the two best teams in the NFC, Rams, Packers, and in the AFC, Broncos and Patriots. But the team I fear the most is the Bills because they're going to be a playoff team, and they've got Josh Allen. But the problem is they got warts. Their run defense has been poor. They haven't been great on the offensive line, and they're still too reliant upon Josh Allen to do everything. But I would say that Buffalo is a scary team right now because of Josh Allen. The guy's awesome. I mean, he is doing everything he possibly can. It's going to be a great game, Buffalo and New England. And the Patriots trying to get the season sweep of Buffalo. I don't know if they can get it done, but it would be pretty amazing if they do. But if they win that game, if New England wins this weekend, they pretty much have locked up the division. And for the Broncos and Packers, like the Packers have the horses to be able to go in Denver and win. Defensively, they're stout. Jordan Love's been playing well. They're coming off a big one over Chicago. With the Broncos, their defense is terrific. Offensively, they're getting better over the last few weeks. But we'll see what Sean Payton can do against that defense. And, can they score enough? And obviously, you got to play a clean game. You got to protect the football. Always in those type of games. We'll get a chance to see Shador the rest of the way because he's been named the star of the rest of the way in Cleveland. Coming off that 300-plus yard performance this past weekend. Joe Burrow looks terrific returning for Cincinnati. I don't know. It's good. It's real good, but it's wide open on both sides. NFC, AFC wide open. And not exactly what we expected going into the year. All right, Aaron Fentress coming up at 5:20. And we'll talk Ducks with him and get his take on, what Dan Lanning has done this year, what he thinks about the James Madison matchup, the playoff field, and how he sees things shaking out. That's coming up at 5:20. I appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. Chad here. Hope you're well, my friends. Trailblazers are back in action tomorrow night after 3 days out. They'll meet the Pelicans in New Orleans. The Blazers are favored by 5.5. Tip-off is set for 5. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. From college football, Michigan has fired head coach Sharon Moore for an inappropriate relationship. Biff Poggi has been named the interim head coach for their bowl game against Texas. And this story is continuing to develop. According to Dan Wetzel, ex-Michigan coach Sharon Moore was detained by police in Saline, Michigan this evening and turned over to police in Pittsfield Township for investigation into potential charges. I'll dive into more of that coming up next on the Rip City Drive. From baseball, first baseman Pete Alonso and Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a $155 million deal. Phillip Rivers is an option to start this weekend. Colts will be in Seattle to meet the Seahawks. All right, this story is getting really bizarre. So we know that Michigan had fired their head coach, Sharon Moore, for an inappropriate relationship. And according to ESPN's Dan Wetzel, Moore has been detained by police in neighboring Saline and was turned over to Pittsfield Township Police with potential criminal charges on the way. There's no more public information as to why he's being arrested at the moment. Wow. Moore just finished out his second year at the helm of the Wolverines, 9-3 in the regular season, and was expected to coach in the Cheez-Its Citrus Bowl against Texas. Biff Poggi, who sounds like a Star Wars character, has been named the acting head coach for the postseason. So he's fired for an inappropriate relationship. And now there was speculation online that it could have been an intern. So I guess if he's being arrested, then was this staffer underage? I don't know. There's no other details that are available. But that is not a good story. So if you're just joining me, Sharon Moore, head coach of the Wolverines, fired earlier today by the school for an inappropriate relationship, and now is being detained by police with potential criminal charges on the way. Ugh, gross. There you go. Unbelievable.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. Or as John Wilner put it, this story has gone from zero to holy bleep in a blink. Goodness gracious. Well, we'll keep an eye on the story. So there you have it. Michigan head coach Sharon Moore is gone, and he's been detained by police. I mean, I just put two and two together. Inappropriate relationship, intern, possibly underaged, and there you have it. And Michigan didn't waste any time. That's unfortunate. That's not a story that you hope to read. That's not the type of headline you want your name in right there. Oh, yeah. What a mess. What a mess. Also, according to Wilner, who is with the Mercury News, does a heck of a job covering college football, ESPN is unlikely to give up the weekly college football playoff ranking show entirely because it makes ESPN the center of the college world. But when Herb Street and Saban are calling for an end, there's a serious problem. So there you have it. But that is one of the big problems, too. Well, why Why is it necessary to put out the weekly college football playoff ranking show? Why not just save it until the very end and put out the rankings? And that way you don't have the committee trying to make sense of their stupid rankings and sounding like idiots. And then you don't have schools like Notre Dame being butthurt because they get left out in the end because they didn't win any of their meaningful games on their schedule. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Also, I've had some questions about this. If Denny Avdia is going to make the All-Star team. All I know about the All-Star format this year is that you're going to have 3 teams. 2 teams formed within Team USA, 2 separate teams from U.S. players, and then you're going to have a world team. So you're going to have 3 separate teams, 2 from the USA and 1 world team. With this new format, there's a very good chance, because Denny Avdia is from Israel, that he's going to make the All-Star team. Now, we'll see, because he's got some stiff competition. But if you look at his numbers and the way that he's played, there's no doubt that Denny Avdia is in a position to make the All-Star team. And the good thing is that he's getting recognition, even being in a smaller market, from different big-time players around the league because they respect how he's going about his business. He makes the teammates around him better. He leads the league in free throw shots right now because he's attacking, and he's perfected the, gather move where he brings the ball from underneath and up. I mean, Denny Avdia has been great. And he's been so much more. I knew the Blazers were getting a good player when they acquired him a couple years ago on draft night, but he's even been more than I think what the team expected. The versatility, the all-around play. He pushes tempo. He can lead the fast break. He can run the point and initiate the offense if you need him to. He can shoot the 3. He's a skilled defender and a very physical basketball player. Denny Avdia is everything you want in a big-time basketball player. And he's probably on the best contract in the NBA, so he's probably the best bargain based on production in the entire league. And when it's all said and done, when you look at some of the players that Joe Cronin has acquired, I mean, Denny Avdia is right at the top in terms of a crown jewel in terms of what he's been able to do. But I'm a big fan of Denny Avdia. One, because I love the way he plays, and I love his toughness. I love his versatility. But he's also a team guy. He cares about winning, and he cares about making the teammates around him better. He's not a me guy in the middle of the me generation. He's very team-oriented. He's been very good. So Denny Avdia has been great, the team's best basketball player. I got to continue to tip the cap and give major props to Jeremy Grant. What he's done this year in terms of his mentality, his approach, and the way he's played has been phenomenal. He's come off the bench. He has embraced and accepted his role off the bench. And with that, he's had to step in and start due to injury, but he continues to remain very aggressive. And he's changed his game. No more mid-range. He's either shooting the 3 or he's getting into the teeth of the defense and attacking the rim and getting to the foul line. I mean, the transformation is terrific. Also, big props to Donovan Clingan. The leap from year 1 to year 2, we see it with the rim protection and the rebounding. Donovan Clingan, like Avdia, very much a team guy, and it's just all about doing whatever he can do to help the team win. I love his mentality. So a lot of things to be excited about with this group. Now, when they start to get their guys back, like Drew Holiday, like Matisse Thybulle, like Scoot Henderson, I think what we're going to find is it's going to take some of the pressure off of Toumani Camara, and he'll become an even better player for it. But Camara, due to the injuries on the roster, has been tasked with doing so much. He's got to step up and be a bigger part of the offense. He continues to carry a massive load on the defensive end. And I think, that combined with the pressure of the new deal, I think it's just been a lot for him to absorb early in the season. But Toumani Camara is going to be fine. But I'm excited about this team because once they get their guys back, you're going to see the best basketball ahead of them. But Denny Avdia has been the leader. And he's the one guy on the roster who's basically irreplaceable because he does so many different things on both ends of the floor. And he makes all of his teammates around him better. But big fan of Denny Avdia. Man, I love the guy. How can you not be excited about him and the way he plays and the toughness? And then it stands to reason, too, like why did Washington not see that? How can you let a guy like that go who was on such a team-friendly deal? Because Denny Avdia, if he was on the open market, he would be making big-time dollars. But he's on a a very team-friendly deal, and the Blazers have a lot of these guys right now in a contract situation where it allows the flexibility to be able to continue to construct the roster. But they're taking the long-term approach this year. They've been very cautious with Scoot, very cautious with Drew Holiday, very cautious with Matisse Thybulle. And I think that's the right way to play it because we're only, about a quarter of the way into the season. So the majority of the basketball games are yet to be played. And it's going to allow these guys to come back, get healthy, and then once they reset, I think you're going to see them have a big time into the season, which will be great. Is that going to come up tonight? The 30 for 30 on Stuart Scott's going to be on ESPN tonight. That's going to be awesome. I saw where Netflix has got a new John Elway documentary coming out. I can't wait to watch that. I think it drops on December 22nd. I think I know everything there is to know about John Elway, but if there's going to be a documentary on him, maybe I can learn more about him. But I love all these sports docs, and I'm at the age now to where a lot of the documentaries coming out are focused on the athletes I grew up watching. So I just need a Larry Bird doc. I'm going to get the Elway doc on December 22nd, but I love getting a chance to dive in and learn more about these players, these athletes I grew up watching. But, yeah, John Elway's got a Netflix doc coming out on December 22nd. And I keep looking back to the time when I was a kid. I grew up, I've had some of the greatest athletes in the world I've been able to watch. Elway, Marino, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, LeBron, Shaq, like all these guys. It's pretty amazing. Mike Tyson. It's not a bad time to be alive when you get a chance to watch all those great athletes. So I'm pretty excited about that. But, man, Sharon Moore, detained by police. There's still no other details coming out on it. We'll have to wait and see. But what a mess. What a mess. 1 minute you're the head coach of Michigan, and the next minute you're being detained by police and have no job. And now potentially no wife, and your money could be gone too. Absolutely brutal. Yikers. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder very much are in play to get to 75 wins and surpass the Warriors. I think that's very possible. I just don't see how they're not going to win the championship this year. They are really good. Pistons right now lead the East at 19-5. The Thunder are 23-1. Their only loss coming at Moda Center in that ridiculous comeback by Portland. All right, Aaron Fentress is going to come up next. We're going to take on Dan Lanning and the work he's done this year, replacing a ton of players and having them right in a position to challenge for a national championship. We'll get his take on the playoff field. Aaron Fentress of the Oregonians coming up next on the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, our next guest covers the Oregon Ducks for the Oregonian. Very happy to welcome Aaron Fentress back to the show. Now, Aaron, before we get to college, I've got some Bears fans that want to know how you feel about the Bears right now.
I was hoping for 9-7 this year. They're already at 9. I wasn't even upset with the loss at the Packers. Well, I mean, I was upset, but I wasn't distraught because to me, they're playing with house money, and you get the Packers back at home in 2 weeks after the Bears, I think, follow Cleveland. I think they got this weekend. So I'm feeling good, man. I like the trajectory. I just wanted them to have a winning record this season. Anything else is gravy at that point, so I'm feeling good.
Yeah, no, they look really good. What a job Ben Johnson has done with that team. But they finish with a difficult stretch. They get a home game against Cleveland, but then Green Bay at home, at San Francisco, home against Detroit to finish out the year. That's a difficult slate right there.
That definitely is, but, I think they can get at least one more. I get you 10. 10-7 is going to get you in, so I'm feeling good. And I think they can beat Detroit at home. I think they can definitely beat the Packers at home. They can win 12, man. Come on.
No, I do. I think they've got a great chance to do it. I guess what I've been impressed with is, the way that Ben Johnson is. I feel like Caleb Williams needed the tough coaching that Ben Johnson has provided. And, it's been a process. But as the season's gone along, I saw it this weekend where Caleb Williams making some big-time throws and doing a better job of just the entire operation, running the offense, getting the plays, in on time and being on time and accurate with the football, man. You're seeing the progress, which is great.
Yeah, second year he should be getting better, but definitely Ben Johnson has him going in the right direction. It helps to have, one voice and not have the mess they had last year with firing the coordinator. Then you get the next coordinator who was the quarterback's coach and blah, blah, blah. And I do like the fact that your head coach is your OC, which means that your OC is not going to leave you and you have to start over with a new OC, like if you hired a defensive-minded coach. So I do like that for him. And, man, he needs to clean up some of the early efficiency stuff, like his completion percentage isn't always that great. But at the same time, he does a great job of getting rid of the ball when he's in trouble, which lowers your completion percentage. And once he gets out of the pocket, he's just electric. Right, it's insane. You almost kind of wait for him to just drop. Okay, he's dropping back. That's cute. Now run, run around somewhere and make a play. He's pretty special at doing that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man. Look, you had Elway and you had Manning. You've had some of the good quarterbacks. In my lifetime, the best Bears quarterback is probably McMahon, and that's going back a long ways. And he was healthy maybe 3 years. So the idea of having a legit quarterback is very exciting for all Bears fans everywhere. But I'm not going to jinx it. It's still early, but at the very least, he's going to be or is already and will continue to be good. Will he be great? I don't know yet, but he's at least good.
No, it's awesome, man. I love it. I'm excited. Both our teams are playoff bound, the Bears and the Broncos, so we have a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, and you guys, you guys were in cap hell. The Russell Wilson thing didn't work out. But you got a great coach in there, right? You got a guy in there who's been there, done that, and he went out and identified the quarterback, brought him in, Bo Nix, and they're killing it. And sometimes that's just what you got to do. And that's kind of what I wanted the Bears to do. But if they weren't going to do that, Ben Johnson was a good selection just because he has proven to be such a good offensive coach.
Yeah, there's no question. I think Sean Payton's a great coach. I'm like you. It's like I think Bo Nix is the guy. I'm not 100% certain yet, but I like the progress that we're seeing there. And when they drafted Bo Nix, I wasn't even sure that was a good selection, but Bo Nix has turned out to be very productive, and he's getting better under the direction of Sean Payton, so I'm excited.
Yeah, at the very least, he's good, right?
Yeah.
Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Is he going to be Elway, 9-time Pro Bowler? Who knows? But at the very least, at least you have good. And us Bears fans, good for us was like Rex Grossman 1 year, Eric Kramer 1 year, like I said, with McMahon. So, I feel like we're in a good spot right now, though.
Well, that's the problem, too, is that I've been spoiled, with Elway and Manning. So it's hard for me to look at other quarterbacks and see clearly because I'm used to those two guys. But you brought up a very good point. Yeah, no doubt. You brought up a great point. How many players did Dan Lanning have to replace going into this season?
18 starters was my count. They returned Poncho, the center, was the only starter on offense they returned. And on defense, you had Tuioti, Mateo, and oh my God, I'm drawing a blank.
But you gave me the number. We're talking about 18 guys, and you brought up the point. How is it that Oregon can replace that many starters, be in a position to compete for a national championship once again?
Bryce Petcher, sorry.
Yeah. And then Dan Lanning's not in contention for Coach of the Year? That's insane.
Oh, you saw my tweet on that?
Yeah, you're right.
That was pretty interesting. Someone tried to make the point. They go, "Oh, he just goes out in the transfer portal." Well, everyone's doing that.
Of course,
like, everyone's in the transfer portal.
Yes.
You know, like that's what you and really, to be honest, part of coaching now is your ability to get into the portal and identify guys who will fit what you do and that you believe are coachable and can fit your culture. Because you may only have them for 1, maybe 2 years, and you have to make it work. So, you know, someone like Malik Benson, who went to Bama, Florida State, you scooped him up, and he's balling for you. Like, you made that decision to go get that guy. Where would they be without him? So you have to get credit for that. The offensive lineman they brought in, you know, replacing 9 starters on defense, and not all of them were transfer portal guys. You have young kids coming up too, like Finney, and someone like, you know, a Bear who was struggling at his previous stops. You know, he's playing better than he ever has before. So yeah, he's a portal guy, but he's a portal guy who's blossoming in your program.
Yes.
And then of course Dante Moore, same thing. Dante Moore is a transfer, but he sat for a year after struggling at UCLA. You and Stein raised him up, and now boom, you have a marquee quarterback. So, and then you got 2 freshman running backs who are killing it. So, you know, yeah, portal is just a part of the game, and so you can't ding a guy for being a portal warrior, because if you're not, you know, adapt or die, right?
Yeah. But you know, you bring up a good point. Isn't that kind of the magic behind Curt Cignetti right now at Indiana, where he's gone to the portal, he's identified guys that fit his program, and he's coached them up, right? And that's been kind of the secret sauce.
100%. You got to do it. Texas Tech even. So I do a podcast, Ducks Confidential, with George Reister. And George at the beginning of the season was just going all in on Texas Tech. And I went and looked at their recruiting over the past few years, and I just didn't see, I thought, wow, they must be developing well, because you didn't see a ton of 4-star kids. Then I got to the transfer portal for this year's class. It was like they had 21 dudes, and more than half were either 4 stars coming out of high school or 4-star rated as transfers.
Yeah,
which is always an interesting, thing to look at. So they brought in a ton of dudes, which is not much different than what Lanning has done since he got here. So I think last year 13 starters were transfer guys, but that's just the way you have to do it. And a few years ago, I said this about quarterback. I said, why even recruit a high school quarterback? You might recruit one. If it's a hot shot, you can get them, great. But I wouldn't, lose things sleep over a high school kid, because there's always guys who are going to be available in the portal. All these kids are going to different places, and then they excel, and then they're looking for more money elsewhere. I mean, look at Levitt at ASU. Levitt's available. I see him going to Miami. I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan. Who are we going to get now, a quarterback, because Beck's going to be gone? Oh, it might be Levitt, because you can just go out when you have money and get anyone in Oregon can do that. So, obviously they're going to recruit high school kids, because you have to have high school kids bubbling up. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, if you can go identify those guys, especially at the group of 5 schools, group of 6 now, and cherry pick, then that's your key to success long term.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, you mentioned Sam Levitt. I'm a big fan of ASU football, and I love Kenny Dillingham, so I watch a lot of their games. Sam Levitt's one of my favorite players in college. Why wouldn't Oregon make a play on Levitt when Dante Moore declares for the draft?
They well could. I was told by someone that Moore is more than likely going to come back. But I was told that last several weeks ago. Maybe that's, I don't know. If he's truly going to be, and don't buy into all these mock drafts out there. There's way too early for that. There's so many instances in history where someone's projected to be top 10 and they fall to the 3rd or 4th round, because a lot of stuff is. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff is for entertainment. Remember, Matt Barkley was a great example. Remember, Matt Barkley was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick, ended up going to 5th round. He actually had a good year, though. But so you kind of got to take all that with a grain of salt. But, I just think he needs another year. But if he's going to go be a top 5 pick, then how do you not go?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you know for sure you're going to be in the top 5, you have to go.
Or even top 10, because you're going to get a bunch of guaranteed money. And that team is going to know what your limitations are, and they're probably going to bring you along slowly. It could be a situation like in Kansas City. Mahomes sat his entire rookie year behind Alex Smith, right? So it could be a situation like that. So there's definitely a benefit to just go if you feel like you're ready and you feel like you're going to be that high of a pick, and so why come back? But at the same time, Mariota needed another year. I felt he came back for a 3rd year as a starter. Herbert came back for a 4th year as a starter. Bo Nix, obviously he transferred, but he started 5 years. So there's an argument to be made for coming back for another year as a productive starter. Because his first year at UCLA was not very pretty. He sat pretty much as a backup last year. Now this year he's having a good, but I wouldn't say, tremendous season. So maybe he benefits from coming back. But, like we just said, if he's top 10, he might as well bounce. And then, he does. And, why not still love it. But is that would Dan do that to his boy Dillingham? I don't know.
Well, it's you mentioned the Hurricanes. I was glad that the committee put the Hurricanes in and left Notre Dame out, because for me, I'm real big on head-to-head competition, and that's always been the number one tiebreaker. And so I would have been really frustrated if Miami would have been left out and Notre Dame was in. Did you have any issues with the final team selected by the committee?
Well, I've been a Miami fan since the Kozar days. I jumped on that bandwagon when I was a kid. I've been on there for 40 years. But here's the thing. When Miami lost to 2 out of 3, won to SMU, I was so pissed. I almost texted Mario, but I let it go. But and they fell, right? So they were like 8-9 spots behind Notre Dame, but they had beaten Notre Dame, right? But they had 2 losses. You couldn't really complain about it then because you just lost 2 out of 3. So then I thought, well, they got to gradually climb. And Notre Dame was going to hit their head on the ceiling with 2 losses, so you could probably have a chance to catch them. So here's what ticked me off about Miami fans and Miami media. They became so disingenuous. And I try, look, I'm a Miami fan, but I'll keep it real because this is just being honest. Miami started ticking up, and then Louisville, a team that beat them, lost its second game. Well, what happened? Louisville fell behind Miami. So while Miami fans and media were out there crying about being behind Notre Dame, even though they had beaten Notre Dame, not one of them was bringing up the fact that Miami had beaten Louisville, and you both had 2 losses, and Louisville was behind Miami. And so the question is, for all these people saying, well, we should be behind Miami or behind Notre Dame, or excuse me, we should be ahead of Notre Dame because we beat them, well, then what do you do with Louisville? So basically what you're saying is that you should be, if Notre Dame's 10, you should be 9, and Louisville's got to jump to 8. Because it beat you, and you beat Miami. Well, rankings don't work that way. And I had an AP vote for a couple of years. It is really hard late in the season to rank 25 teams because of all the transitive property nonsense that goes out there. That just doesn't really work. So what had to happen is Miami had to keep winning and keep climbing. And if it did, I felt like if it got to within 1 of Notre Dame, that the committee would flip it. Because then you can. But if it's 3 or 4 spots for whatever reason, then there's nothing you can do about it because you're just stuck. So I think it worked out perfectly with BYU losing. That settled everything.
Yeah, no question about it. We're talking with Aaron Fentress from the Oregonians. So the Ducks, I've been the most impressed by the play of their offensive and defensive lines throughout the year, especially with the continuity of the offensive line early in the season. So with that said, how do you think they stack up against the rest of the competition to be able to go out and pursue a national championship this year?
Well, I love the fact that they really got their running game going in the second half of the season. They relied on it heavily at Iowa, against Wisconsin in the rain. And it showed out again at UW. They ran all over USC. Like, they really have established that thing with Noah Whittington, and then you got your 2 youngsters, Jordan. I always want to call him Jordan. He spells his first name the same way as Jordan. Fat Matt, remember him?
Yes.
It's Jordan Davison, though. He pronounces it wrong, Dan. It's Jordan Davison and Deer Hill Jr. And so they've really got the triple head monster going there behind that big, powerful offensive line. It's a lot of new guys, but they gelled, right? Second half of the season started to gel. But I love that going into the playoffs because you're going to Texas Tech's defense is no joke. And yes, I'm going to look past James Madison. Dan Lanning's not. I'm gonna because I don't have to play next week. But Texas Tech's defense is no joke, and so if you can run on them, though, if you can really get the running game at least to be solid, that's going to help free up more. If you struggle running in that game, you could be in trouble because then they're going to unleash hell on you, just like Indiana did. Now, one of the things about the Indiana game that Lanning lamented after the fact was that they had some success running the football. They kind of got away from it. And I think because they saw things in the passing game they liked downfield, but they weren't able to protect it because of some of the stunts that they were running, pressures and things like that Indiana was doing. So I think going into that game, they're going to feel confident that they can run well enough to keep Indiana's defense honest. And then you got whoever you play in the national championship game against Ohio State or Georgia. My thing is, though, if I'm looking at probability, I still look at the close games that they've had. Penn State was better than they ended up. We all know that. Yeah. Iowa was close. They're losing in the fourth quarter of that game. They're losing overtime to Penn State. USC game was relatively close. And then, it was 19-14 in the fourth at UW. And they were able to pull all those out. Now they're going to play after next week, they're going to play 3 teams all better than those 4 teams. And so they're going to be close games, more than likely. Can they find a way to pull out 3 games like that against that level? I just don't know. I think the math says no. The probability says no. Is it impossible? No. Do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily. But this is a day and age of parity. It feels almost NFL-esque in that, yes, you have teams who look like are probably the best, but you don't feel like they're going to dominate the competition. Like there's going to be some close games in there, NFL playoff style, that anyone can pull out. So if they can find the magic in the fourth quarter, they can do it. I just think it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. You're right. It's like NFL level parity with those teams that are in there. But man, that Texas Tech Oregon game in the second round is looking pretty tasty, isn't it? It's awesome.
It is, but I cannot tell you how bitter I am right now that we got James Madison next week. No offense to James Madison, no offense to the group of six, but dude, I can say this right. I think we've talked about it before, but I got into this business because I wanted to get paid to watch sports, because I wanted to cover great events, right? That's one reason why I never try to get into management or editing. I don't want that nonsense. I want to go to games, right? So I'm going to go to the college playoffs. I've been to 2 national championship games, Super Bowls, all sorts of things like that, right? I wanted Notre Dame coming to Austin.
Yes.
I wanted Texas or Miami or someone like that coming to Austin. Man, that would have been one of the biggest sporting events in the history of the state. Forget just Austin, in the history of the state. Notre Dame coming to Austin Stadium in December for a playoff game would have been unbelievable. Instead, we get James Madison. So I'm a little bent about that. I know I may sound like a whiny sports writer, and that's okay. I'll take that. I'm being a baby, and that's fine. But that's what I wanted to see, and I'm not getting it. So I'm a pout all the way till I get to Miami.
Well, it's okay, because I'm with you on that. Like, my best memories in this business over the years have been covering the big-time games, the big events, the ones that everyone's excited about. It's fun, man. I love it. But the games where it's like James Madison, it's like, because you're going to make a trip to Eugene for a blowout. It sucks.
Yeah, and their press box is open air. It's supposed to be cold up there. Like, it's just, I'm just being. I know. You can call me a diva if you want to. I'm admitting it, at least, right? I'm admitting it. I'm kind of a snob when it comes to big events, but no, they're just fun, And when I cover the Seahawks, when I go up there and I saw Manning and Denver come in to Seattle and beat them the year after they beat them lost to them in the Super Bowl. That was great. Seeing Aaron Rodgers and Favre up there, that was great. Going up there to see Tampa Bay with Mike Glennon, not so great. You know? So in this case, I feel like we got robbed by the process of what could have been a really special event. Do you remember in 2011, the first ever Pac-12 championship game? And because they did the division thing, it was South versus North.
Yes.
And UCLA won the South with like 6-5.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was garbage.
That was such a bummer.
I know. I hated it.
Ridiculous. So this feels like that to me.
No, I'm with you on that. No, I love it. I remember the title game against Auburn. I went down to Arizona the week before and did a bunch of shows leading up to that game, and it was great because all the attention, all the focus was on that one game, and all the big names were there, and so the excitement leading up to the game it was just an awesome event because you were at a big game. It's a difference maker.
100%. Yeah, I've done that too. It's fabulous. So yeah, Miami will be cool. Like I said, I just thought it'd be so much fun. My biggest fantasy is Miami, though. One, because I'm a Miami fan, too. Having Mario, since he left for Miami, coming back to Austin with Miami in a playoff game. Oh, my God. I get chills just thinking about how the theater of that would have been just amazing. But
let me tell you about your Hurricanes real quick, man. So growing up in Oklahoma, because I was born in Tulsa, I was in love with Barry Switzer. From 85 up until 87, 3 straight seasons. The Sooners only lost 3 games that entire stretch. And they were all to freaking Miami. It drove me crazy.
That stretch of Miami, that 20-year stretch was pretty amazing, man. They had flavor too, didn't they? They were bringing it. They were talking. Randall Hill. Randall Hill, I think, is the guy who invented the catch a pass, get up and sit on first down, and he would do it after a 5-yard catch. He was just embarrassing with it. Cristobal played with him. He and I talked a little bit about him once. But yeah, those teams were fun, and they haven't been as good the last 20 years, but I stuck with them. So Mario's doing a good job.
Well, I don't know if I told you this, but my favorite college football game of all time is the Miami Notre Dame matchup in '88. That's the best college football game I've ever seen with my own eyes. It was amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta go. My wife's calling me. I don't want to talk about that garbage, man. Wait, Miami got robbed.
They did. They got robbed.
It was a bad call.
The 30 for 30 Catholics versus convicts is amazing. It's an amazing breakdown. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it was.
Yeah, the Cleveland Gary fumble was bull crap. You and I both know it. It was crap. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. See, I blocked it out of my mind, but you wouldn't brought it up. I appreciate it.
Well, you're the man, dude. Hey, have fun. for next week against James Madison, but you have something to look forward to, the trip to Miami, brother.
Yep, I appreciate it.
All right, there you go. Aaron Fentress, Oregonian,
Right.
covering the Ducks. And he brings up a good point. You know, I think Ohio State may have suffered from some of that, you know, potentially where you know, they didn't play any close games, and all of a sudden they wound up in one against Indiana, and it cost them. Maybe the Ducks' close games down the stretch is going to help them when they get in these battles against Texas Tech and potentially Indiana. Let's go out to Don and Tiger. Don, long time no chat. What's on your mind?
You did real well with that interview.
I appreciate
Some
that.
critical questions, you know. Not bad.
You feel
Not
like
bad for a.
you feel like the Ducks are going to win the
good guy.
championship? You think the Ducks got it, Donnie?
Well, according to some sources, they're going to make it to the championship round, and there's some sources that Georgia is pretty good.
Yeah, Georgia's pretty
But
good.
I'm hoping Cristobal to make it, because I love to see a next Duck coach going against a former coach.
That'd be kind
And
of
that
fun.
would be good. And I like the Canes. I like it when they get an interception, the guy gets the chain.
I
You
know.
know?
I know. I feel
There's
like
nothing like it.
no. I feel like I need that after like a good segment on the show. I feel like someone should drop a chain on me like the Canes.
You know, they got a good emblem on their helmet. I've always been a fan of the Miami Hurricanes back since the Bowden days when they used to play Florida State. Those rivalries were just spot on.
It's the best, man. Florida State, Miami was great. I love those big time rivalries in college football over the years. Fun.
That when bowl games were great.
Yeah.
You know, back in the the 90s. You know, and now the granddaddy of them all, that doesn't mean anything, because the playoffs have really destroyed the marquee bowl games. And the Big Ten against the Pac-12, that ain't going to ever happen again. It's just terrible.
Yeah, the bowl games are gone,
You know?
Don, but the good thing is that we have the playoff. We have an actual legitimate playoff, which is terrific. All right, we'll come back. We'll finish things out. Rip City Drive. Big thanks to Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian, talking some Ducks. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. Blazers in action tomorrow, taking on the Pelicans in New Orleans. Tip-off will be at 5. Blazers game day will start at 3 here in your home of the Blazers. Rip City Radio 620. All right, here's the latest on the Sharon Moore situation in Michigan. Detained by police in Saline, Michigan Wednesday, and was later turned over to a second area police department for investigation into potential charges. That's according to the Saline Police Department. And, quote, the City of Saline Police Department assisted in locating and detaining former University of Michigan coach Sharon Moore. The department said in a statement released to ESPN, Mr. Moore was turned over to the Pittsfield Township Police Department for investigation into potential charges. The University of Michigan fired Moore as its head football coach earlier today following an investigation into Moore's conduct with a staff member. Quote, head football coach Sharon Moore has been terminated with cause effective immediately, the school said in a statement. Following a university investigation, credible evidence was found that Coach Moore engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. The conduct constitutes a clear violation of university policy, and maintains zero tolerance for such behavior. Calls to Saline and Pittsfield Township Police Departments have not been returned. Moore, who is 39, spent 2 seasons at as Michigan's head coach after serving as an assistant with the program beginning in 2018. So if you look at that story based on the firing and inappropriate relationship with a staffer, and then the fact that he was detained by police, I mean, my guess would be, based on some of the stuff that's circling around the internet, we could be looking at a inappropriate relationship with someone who was underage. That would be my guess, that staffer was not of legal age. That's quite possible. So there you have. It's crazy. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. Tomorrow the Blazers are going to be in New Orleans. So no Rip City Drive tomorrow because Blazers game day will start at 3. I'll have the network pregame show at 4. Chris Burkhart with Blazer Game Day at 3. And the tip-off at 5. Travis Demers will have the call. The Trailblazers will play that game tomorrow, and then they're back home for a game against Steph Curry and the Warriors on Sunday at Motor Center. That game will tip off at 6 o'clock. And as I mentioned, this weekend, bowl games will get underway. We got Army and Navy at noon on CBS. Right now, Navy's a 6-point favorite, and we got big-time matchups in the NFL. Like big-time games. The Thursday night game, not so much. Falcons, who are basically done this year, playing at the Bucs. But on Sunday, Browns are at the Bears. Ravens are at the Bengals. Chargers at the Chiefs. Bills at the Patriots, which is the marquee matchup. 10 o'clock on CBS. Right now, Buffalo a 1-point favorite. And the other big game, Packers at the Broncos. We also got another good one in the afternoon, Lions at the Rams. Very nice. Colts at the Seahawks at 125, and Sunday Night Football, Vikings at the Cowboys. All right, that's going to do it for me. Big thanks to Aaron Fentress. Thank you to Brendan Slaughter. You guys have a great night, and I'll be back tomorrow with the network pregame show at 4. Chris Burkhart will have game day at 3. The Blazers and Pelicans will tip off at 5. You guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.